So hello and good afternoon to one and all present. Hope you all are doing fine. So today's webinar topic is how to write a research paper. We also have with us Dr. Kuldeep, who will be answering all your questions in the end. So keep posting your questions in the chat box and kindly keep yourself muted for the smooth operation of the webinar. So without wasting much time, let's get into the webinar. So we'll discuss about the definition of research, what is a research paper, types of papers, and the steps involved in completion of a research paper. Now, what is research? It's an endeavor to discover new or collate old facts by the scientific study of a subject or by a course of critical investigation. In other words, it is the creation of new knowledge and or the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way so as to generate new concepts, methodologies, and understandings. This could include synthesis and analysis of previous research to the extent that it leads to new and creative outcomes. Now, what is a research paper? A research paper can be used for exploring and identifying scientific, technical, and social issues. So basically, it's an essay in which, please kindly keep yourself muted. So it's basically an essay in which you can explain what you have learned after exploring your topic in depth. Kindly keep yourself muted. Okay. So in a research paper, you include information from sources such as books, articles, interviews, and internet sites. You can also use your own ideas, knowledge, and opinions. As a thumb rule, most of your paper should be in your own words. Now, coming to the types of papers, the first is full or original papers. Second is letters, rapid communications, book reviews. Third is review or perspectives. And the last is case studies or clinical trials. So what are full or original articles? This is the most common type of journal manuscript used to publish full reports of data from research. It is the one which describes methodology in details, has a very elaborative results, and a comprehensive discussion. All in all, full-length articles are detailed studies reporting original research conducted by the author. Next is letters to the editor. These are brief communications that are appropriate for the journal's scope that addresses a topic of interest to its readers. It is usually written in response to a recent publication within the journal, but can also be on an unrelated topic of interest to the journal's readership. Now, rapid communication, which is also called short communication, is a scientific paper that is published swiftly and is of a shorter length than an original research article. Scientists generally use this format when they have findings that need to be shared immediately with the academic community. Now, book reviews. A book review is a critical analysis that describes, summarizes, and critiques the idea present in the book. It is a means of going beyond the literal content of a source and is a tool for connecting ideas from a variety of academic sources. A review provides an objective analysis of ideas, supports for opinions, and a way to evaluate your own opinions. Now, next is review article, which is sometimes also called literature review or secondary sources. It's an article that summarizes the current state of understanding on a topic within a certain discipline. It is generally considered as a secondary source since it analyzes and discusses the methods and conclusion in previously published studies. The purpose of a research paper is to offer a systematic critical evaluation of former research work so that new domains can be explored from the conclusion. Now, next is case studies. Case study is a research approach that is used to generate an in-depth, multifaceted understanding of a complex issue in its real-life content. For example, a group of individuals might be watched over an extended period of time to observe the progression of a particular disease. Now, the next one is clinical trials. Now, clinical trials are basically of two types. First is preclinical studies, and the next is clinical studies. Preclinical studies refer to the testing of a drug, procedure, or other medical treatment in animals before trials may be carried out in humans. During preclinical drug development, the drug's toxic and pharmacological effects needs to be evaluated through in vitro and in vivo lab animal testing. Now, there are different phases of clinical trials. But before that, the definition of clinical trials are the research studies that test how well new medical approaches work in people. Each study answers scientific questions and tries to find better ways to prevent, screen, diagnose, or treat a disease. Clinical trials may also compare a new treatment to a treatment that is already available. Now, there are different phases of clinical trials, namely phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Phase 0 trials are usually the earliest trials of drugs in people. These studies aim to find out if a drug behaves in the way researchers expected it to from their lab studies. Now, the number of people involved in phase 0 trials are small and often about 10 to 20 people. Now, phase 1 trials are trials for people with any type of advanced disease, usually those who have already had all other treatments. Now, this trial aims to find out how much of the drug is safe to give, what are the side effects, what happens to the drug in the body, and if the treatment helps in the curing of the particular disease. Now, the number of people in this trial are about 20 to 50. Now, phase 2 are trials for the people who have the same type of disease or who have different type of disease. Now, this trial aims to find out if the new treatment works well enough to be tested in a larger phase like phase 3 trial. It also sees which types of disease the particular treatment works for. It focuses more about the side effects and how to manage them. And lastly, it is more about the best dose to give. The number of people involved here are near about 80 to 90 and sometimes over 100. Now, phase 3 trials compare new treatments with the best currently available treatment. Phase 3 trials aims to find out which treatment works better for a particular type of cancer. It focuses more about the side effects again and how the treatment affects people's quality of life. Now, the last phase, that is phase 4 trials, are the trials done after a drug has shown to work and has been licensed. It aims more about the side effects and safety of the drug, what the long-term risks and benefits are, and how well the drug works when it's used more widely. Now that we have learned about the types of papers, now coming to the next step is the processes starting from writing a research paper to its publication. So usually this involves two broad steps, where the first step is conducting a research study and summarizing the results, and step 2 is writing a research paper. So conducting study and summarizing the results again involves some basic steps, like first is conceptualization, where you choose a topic of interest, then conduct a literature survey, then find any research gaps or lacuna. Then you have a hypothesis, which is a clear, specific, and testable proposition about the possible outcome. The next is designing your research question, conducting experiment or methods. Now, in execution of the study, what you do is you conduct your experiment and analyze the data, thereby preparing the required figures, graphs, and tables. The third is selection of journal that matches the scope of your study. Now, coming to the step 2, that is writing a research paper. The first step is creating a research paper outline. Now, this is basically a general structure of a full article, which contains a title, then the list of authors, abstract, keywords, main text, acknowledgements, references, tables, and supplementary materials. Now, a good research paper title shortens the paper's content in a few words, captures the reader's attention, differentiates the paper from other papers of the same subject area. It is usually kept simple and descriptive, with appropriate descriptive words, and the abbreviations and jargons should be avoided. Now, coming to author details, the manuscript should include all the author's full name and affiliation. One author will need to be identified as the corresponding author with their full address, like email ID, phone number, fax number, etc. Now, author's affiliations are the one where the research was conducted. If any of the named co-authors moves affiliation during the peer review process, the new affiliation can be given as a footnote. But please note that no changes to affiliation can be made after your paper is accepted. Now, coming to abstract. Abstract is not just an introduction. Instead, it summarizes the very essence of your thesis. It's a concise description of the problem, your method of solving them, results, and conclusion. Now, there are 3 types of abstract. The first one is structured abstracts. Here, the sections are mentioned separately, namely aim, methods, results, and conclusion. Based on the items in the structured abstracts, using them as a creative solution can help the effective and efficient development of the results of your study. Now, unstructured abstracts, they are usually written as a paragraph. They are not divided into different sections, and it is required that the content, order, and sequence of the items are formulated as it is in the structured one. Nowadays, writing a structured abstract is common in most of the scientific fields. It is because the authors of the paper ignore some of the information elements like introduction method or findings in unstructured abstracts. Now the third one is graphical abstracts. It is a pictorial presentation of the summary of your study, and it usually includes no text. Now, coming to keywords, these are labels for your manuscript, which are critical for indexing, searching, and visibility. Careful selection of keywords will mean that researchers are more likely to retrieve, read, and cite your article. The purpose of keywords in a research paper is to help other researchers find your paper when they are conducting a search on the particular topic. Now, it is suggested to use MESH keywords, that is medical subject headings, because one of the biggest advantages of using MESH keywords is that all MESH keywords are predefined and have synonyms included. It is effective for searching rather than only looking for where words appear in the text of the abstract. Now, coming to the main body of the research paper is first, introduction. The first thing is introducing your topic. The first job is to tell the reader what your topic is and why it is interesting or important. And this is generally accomplished with a strong opening sentence. The opening sentence clearly conveys the relevance of your topic. Think of an interesting fact or statistic, a strong statement, a question, or a brief anecdote that will get the reader wondering what your topic is. Now, describe the background. Describing the background generates the reader's interest in your research topic or question and helps them understand why your study is important. Typically, the background of a study includes a review of the existing literature on the area of your research leading up to your topic. Once you have discussed the contribution of other researchers in the field, you can identify gaps in understanding the areas that have not been addressed in those studies. You can then explain how your study will address those gaps and how it will contribute to the existing knowledge in the field. Third is establishing your research problem. Clarify how your own research fits in and what problem it addresses. The next step is specifying your objectives. Now state the objectives that describe what will be researched during the study. And the last step is summary, which gives a brief overview of your study, and it typically preserves the structure of the article it focuses on. Now, coming to materials and methods, this section commonly has first a study type, second a study setting, third duration of study, fourth includes inclusion and exclusion criteria, sample size calculation, ethical approval, detailed methodology, data collection and statistical analysis, data confidentiality, and registration number in case it's a clinical trial. Now, study type is also known as study design. And these are, please kindly keep yourself muted. Thank you. So study type is generally of two types, that is descriptive and analytical studies. Descriptive studies are specific characteristics in a population of interest. Their most common forms are case reports and case series. In a case report, we discuss our experiments with the patient's symptoms, signs, diagnosis, and treatment. And in a case series, several patients with similar experiences are grouped. Now, analytical studies are again of two types, which are observational and experimental. Observational studies are the studies that we conduct without any intervention or experiment. Here, we purely observe the outcomes only. Now, they are again of different types. The first one is cross-sectional study. And this is like, I'll give you an example. If we want to know the prevalence of diabetes in a population, or we want to know the prevalence of migraine, so we can conduct a cross-sectional study where we take a sample from the population and calculate the number of patients with diabetes, or if we are taking into consideration migraine issue, then we calculate the number of patients with migraine headaches. The second type of observational study is cohort study. We conduct this study by comparing two samples from the population. One sample with a risk factor while the other without the risk factor. This study is approached by two longitudinal designs. One is prospective, one is retrospective. Now, prospective one, here we follow the individuals in the future to know who will develop the disease. And in retrospective, we look at the past to know who developed the disease, for example, by using medical records. Now, in this, we can include example like to find the relative risks of developing chronic obstructive pulmonary disease among smokers. We take a sample including smokers and non-smokers, and then we calculate the number of individuals with the disease among both the groups. Now, the third type of observational study is case control study. We conduct this study by comparing two groups, one with the disease that comes under cases, and another group without the disease, that is the control. Now, this design is always retrospective, and here we aim to find out the odds of having a risk factor or an exposure if an individual has a specific disease. Just a reminder, please keep posting your questions in the chat box. So coming to the study setting, it is basically where the study is conducted. For example, in a hospital, and basically it's like a location, like where the study is conducted. Third is duration of study, that is the period of study from a particular date to a particular date at which the time the study is being conducted. Now, the next one is inclusion and exclusion criteria. Inclusion criteria are the characteristics that prospective participants must have if they wish to join the study. And exclusion criteria are the characteristics that disqualify the respective participants from joining a study. The next one is sample size calculation, and it is usually done with the help of a software or a convenience method kind of thing. The next one is ethical approval. Ethical approval is required if you are involving any human participant or any using any animal model. So you need to require ethical approval from a committee, ethical committee, and the registration number. The next is detailed methodology, where you include all your kits, chemicals, animal models, etc. that you have used for your study. The next one is data collection and statistical analysis. So here basically you mention the tools that you have used. The next is data confidentiality. This applies if you are using human participants in your study and they want to keep their identity as anonymous. The last one is registration number, and this is basically required in case of clinical trials. Now coming to the results. The results section of the research paper is where you report the findings of your study based upon the information gathered as a result of the methodology that you had applied. The results section simply state the findings without bias or interpretation and arranged in a logical sequence. This section should always be written in the past tense. And here you present your findings and you present the tables, graphs, diagrams, anything that is required in this section. Now coming to discussion. Discussion is considered as the most important part of a research paper. Here, you explore the underlying meaning of your research. You present the importance of your study. This part of the paper is not strictly governed by objective reporting of information. Here, you critically compare your findings with already published data. It is suggested to add limitations and future recommendations. The purpose of the discussion is to interpret and describe the significance of your findings in light of what was already known about the research problem being investigated, and to explain any new understanding or fresh insights about the problem after you have taken the findings into consideration. The discussion will always connect to the introduction by way of the research questions or hypothesis you posed and the literature you reviewed. But it does not simply repeat or rearrange the introduction. Now, the discussion should always explain how your study has moved the reader's understanding of the research problem forward from where you left them at the end of the introduction. This section is often considered the most important part of a research paper because it most effectively demonstrates your ability as a researcher to think critically about an issue, to develop creative solutions to problems based on the findings, and to formulate a deeper, more profound understanding of the research problem you're studying. Now, coming to conclusion. Conclusion presents the conclusive analysis of your research. It is usually dependent on your hypothesis, and it elaborates the significance of your findings. It helps the readers understand why your research should matter to them after they have finished reading the paper. A conclusion is not merely a summary of your points or a restatement of your research problem, but a synthesis of key points. Just as the introduction gives a first impression to your reader, the conclusion offers a chance to leave a lasting impression. It allows you a chance to elaborate on the significance of your findings, and it also offers new insight and creative approaches for framing or contextualizing the research problem based on the results of your study. Now, when you write your first draft, the points that are to be kept in mind are first tenses. So the abstract should be in past tense because it's a summary description of what you did. Second, introduction should be in present tense because you describe the study to the readers. The literature review should be in past tense because the studies you're reviewing have already been published. Methodology should be in past tense because it's the way that you gathered and synthesized data. Results should be in past tense. The discussion should be in present tense as you're discussing the findings with the readers. The conclusion should be in present tense as you're summarizing the study. Now, preparation of plots, tables, and figures. They show the most important findings. Do not let your graph and picture take much space than reporting data would. The symbols, line types, bars should be clearly visible without cluttering the picture. Legend should be self-explanatory and comprehensive so that the figure can be fully understood without recourse to reading explanatory text. Now, what is useful in oral presentation may not be useful in research article. Example, pie charts. Use color only when necessary. Avoid too small figures with lots of text and avoid using very long tables. Now, coming to references, cite only the relevant references in the body. When citing information from another's publication, be sure to report the relevant aspects of the work clearly and succinctly in your own words. Avoid having too many references and excessive self-citations. Use the correct style for journal citation and be consistent throughout. Now, the following points are the ones that you should not do, which is do not use footnotes and do not use direct quotes from published material. Now, this is basically an example from a journal. Now, different journals have different guidelines for references with which they ask should be written accordingly. Now, coming to acknowledgement, give due credit to the people who helped you in completion of the research, and remember not to put your co-authors in acknowledgement. Now, acknowledgements can be funding agency, involvement of people from departments, and people who directly helped in recording data, etc. So once you have written the first draft of your paper, the next step is to proofread it. And proofreading is the act of searching for errors before you hand your paper. Now, the different errors can be both grammatical and typographical in nature, but you also include identifying problems, like you see if the flow of your paper is in logical sequence or not. And you also see there are if the font types, indented paragraphs, line spacing, uneven margins are properly done or not. Using a good proofreading software is very important. It eases your work and saves you a lot of time. Now, there are different types of proofreading software like Authenticate and Grammarly. The next is double checking the facts and figures. Now, before final proofing, be sure you have revised the larger aspects of the text. Set your text aside for a while between writing and proofreading. Eliminate unnecessary words before looking for mistakes. And reread your paper for grammatical errors. Now, the last one is get someone else to read it over, as sometimes a second pair of eyes can see mistakes that you have missed. Now, these are some points to keep in mind after writing your paper. These are some basic questions that you can ask yourself for proper understanding and more insights if you want. Like, is my thesis statement concise and clear? Did I follow my outline? Did I miss anything? Are the arguments presented in a logical sequence? Are the citations done properly or not? Is the thesis proved with a strong supporting arguments? Did I begin each paragraph with a proper topic sentence? Does it have any unfinished sentences? Any unnecessary words? different lengths of sentences? Are the quotes accurate in source, spelling, and punctuation? Are all my citations accurate and in correct format? And did I use third person too much? Have I made my points clear and interesting but remained objective? Did I leave a sense of completion for my readers at the end of the paper? Now the next step is typing your final paper. All formal reports or essays should be typewritten and printed, preferably on a good quality paper. Read the assignment sheet again to be sure that you understand fully what is expected of you and that your paper meets the requirements as specified by your research. Proofread the final paper carefully for spelling, punctuation, missing, or duplicated words. Make the effort to ensure that your final paper is clean, tidy, neat, and attractive. Do have your final paper ready a day or two before the deadline. This gives you peace of mind and a chance to triple check. And before submitting your research paper to the target journal, ask yourself, is this the very best that I can do? So here you are, you did it, and make sure you have adhered to all the formatting requirements of the journal and submit your paper, and always keep a copy of your paper on file and in hard copy. So thank you. Thanks for attending our webinar. We trust you find it useful and enjoyable, and we hope to see you on another webinar again soon. So let's get to the questions. Dr. Kuldeep will be answering all your questions. I'll read the questions one by one, and whoever has a doubt can unmute themselves and raise the query. Okay, Dr. Kuldeep, shall we start with the question answer?
Sure.
Yeah. May I know who is PhD? PhD. He or she can unmute themselves and ask the question.
Yes. Yes. You heard me? I am Dr. Wahid Faisal.
Okay. Yeah.
You heard me? Yes.
Yes, sir. I can
Yes,
hear you.
Okay.
Is this your question? That how I can make a control sample in a clinical comparative study, right?
Excuse me, this is me. Excuse me.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, I am Dr. Perjan from Iraq, and I'm asking you, how can we make or select a control sample for a comparative study?
Okay. Dr. Kuldeep?
Yes. So it's a very, it's a very good question asked by you, how to select a control group in a comparative study. So the control groups, there are a few points we should remember while selecting a control group. The control group should be age and gender matched. Age and gender matched means if your study group is, let us consider that if your study group is 18 to 35 years, then the control group should also fall within that range only, 18 to 35. This is called age matching. And then gender matching. If you have 50 males and 50 females as in your case arm, that means the gender ratio is 1:1. So similarly in the control group also you should maintain a ratio of 1:1 for males and females in the control group. So this is called gender matching. This means your control group should be age and gender matched. Number 3, the third point is, let us suppose number 3 completely depends upon your objective. For example, if you are comparing the effect of a drug in managing the sugar levels in diabetes. So the cases will be all the diabetic patients. Here the controls will be people who are not having diabetes. This means the control group should be healthy individuals if it is a case control study. So these are the three important points. There are several other points also, but that depends entirely and solely on your study objectives. But these are the three important points which applies to all the studies. The control group should be age matched, the control group should be gender matched, and it should be free of any disease. Healthy individuals.
Yes, so can I, excuse me, thank you for this nice explanation, but then how can I choose or select, for example, age-matched group? I mean, for example, if I have a group of IDP, say 100%, for example, 50 male and 50 female, how I will go to the public and choose other people, not IDP, in order to find out, for example, whether they are traumatized or not, for example. So what is the way of going to the population? How I will choose the population?
Okay. So the best, I mean, there is no defined way to do that, but what I will suggest is that if you are working on a particular disease, you might target the unaffected family members of the patient. If a person is coming to you with a disease, diagnosed disease, you can target the unaffected family members as controls. So that person might be having some family members without that disease. So you can call them and you can include them. And secondly, you can just target the OPDs, the outpatient department of your hospital or your clinic, where the persons are coming for with any complaints. Then as a rule, the clinicians first conduct the preliminary diagnosis or the clinical investigations to find out if that person is having that disease or not. So there may be some persons who will not be diagnosed to have that particular disease after clinical examinations. So those individuals can be treated as control in your study. And precisely your question is that your study is on I mean, you are evaluating certain stress condition, PTSD, post-traumatic stress. You are asking. So in that case, if you think that okay, I want to include this person as a control, then you should have a particular questionnaire developed with you. So you can ask that person 10-20 questions pertaining to the assessment of stress levels. If you find that okay, the score obtained is qualifying this person to be normal, then you can include that person as a healthy individual, or you can include that person in your control group. Am I clear, doctor?
Yes, thank you very much. It is very clear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Avinash Parida. My question is, what is popular article and how to write it?
What is?
What is
Sorry?
popular article? How to write it?
Popular article.
Yes, sir.
I don't think there is any article called as popular article. Can you please explain what is a popular article? I mean, I haven't heard of popular article before.
Popular article means, sir, in recent scenario, which is most focusing and interesting topic.
So here you want to conduct a research and then write an article, or it's a review article?
No, it's like original manuscript.
Okay, original manuscript. So for example, let us take an example of the COVID scenario that is ongoing now. So now COVID is a burning topic now. So a lot of people, they just started conducting small researches and then they wrote paper and got it published. So it actually follows the same rules that is followed in writing other articles. So only thing is that you are selecting here a topic which is very popular, which is in trend. For example, COVID-19, whatever you write, I mean, there are high chances of acceptance if you work on a COVID related topic and try to publish during this period of pandemic. So the rules are the same for writing a popular article as is for other articles. Only the difference is that selecting a topic. So you should select a topic which is trending now. I mean, in the current scenario.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you. Sir, my another question is, if I'm
Yes.
observing some animals' behavior for a long
Okay.
time period, or
Okay.
like some animal, maybe birds or animal, and whether it can be considered as a case of study.
No, no. You are
Sir,
studying a group of animals. You are studying a group of animals. The behavioral aspects of a group of animals you're studying.
yes, sir, sir, sir.
Okay, what animal you are studying?
Uh, Birds and monkeys, like.
Birds and monkeys. So no, that then this is an experimental study only. I mean, you are
Okay,
having a control group also.
sir, sir.
So then it
Then
will be
what
an
is case study? Sorry,
case
yes,
studies. See, case studies are mostly written for human samples. For example, a
sir.
person case studies, case report and case study. So case study pertains to a particular unique case. For example, there may be hundreds of diabetes patients turning up into an OPD, but suddenly a patient is coming who is having diabetes plus a patient is having diabetes with a neurological disorder, which is very rarely seen. I mean, there is no report of such a patient who is having diabetes along with the neurological disorder. So that presence of the neurological disorder along with diabetes makes that person unique. So that those unique cases can be presented as single cases. You do not need to have 100 of samples. You just present how that patient came to your OPD, how did you treat it, was it controlled, the disease symptoms where it was it controlled. So in that way you can present a single case as a case report. And case series, if you find if you see in your OPD that 4-5 similar cases are coming with diabetes and that neurological disorder, you can present that as a case series, only 5 patients or 6 patients, but those cases should be unique, I mean not reported before. So that is a case report. Is it clear?
Okay, okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, another question is, if I am
Yes.
collecting data in like human environment, human landscapes, so whether I have to take permission from any authority or no need of any permission?
Yes, you should have you should apply for a permission from your institute. There must be some I mean authority in your institute who is giving permission.
No, no, sir. If I am collecting,
No, what kind of study you're doing? It is a survey or kind of study or what? Hello? Hello?
hello.
Yes. So is it a survey
Sir,
kind of, is it a survey that you are going to conduct?
yes, it's a survey and also experimental. Like suppose I'm studying like what is the human perception and anthropogenic pressure on the nilgais or chinkara or black buck or birds in the agricultural landscape like that. It's an outside protected, you know? So whether I have to take permission from any
Yes,
authority or
any
not.
any study that involves animals or human beings should be conducted after taking permission from the
Okay,
every institute has a committee which is called institutional review board. So you can seek permission from that review board if your study is involving animal or human, whatever is the type of
okay,
the
sir.
study. If your study is involving animal or human, you should seek permission.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Next please.
Thank you, Mr. Avinash. Sir, next question is from Shalangwa. Um, the question is, what does it mean to receive a reviewer's comment stating that the research is of limited novelty and rejecting its publication on that grounds?
Okay, so as Miss Swati told you that in the introduction section itself, You have to write the background of your research, the hypothesis of the research, the gap in the existing literature that you are trying to fill by conducting your research. So your research should be noble. Noble in the sense the research idea should be noble. It should not be similar to a already published article. So if a reviewer is saying that it is lacking novelty, this means that hundreds of research studies have been published, which is matching the aim and objectives of your study. So the study is not unique. You are just replicating somebody else's study. So your study, your research should always bring certain new aspects to the already existing literature. So if a reviewer is saying that it is lacking novelty, this means that there is no newness in your research. You have replicated somebody else's research work which is already published.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Leila. The question is, how many papers should be a research paper? How many
Excuse me,
papers should be a research paper?
How many papers should be a research paper?
Yeah,
I
that is
think
the question.
yeah, question is not right. Next, please. But this question is not right. I mean, you can ask the.
Laila, can you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
I mean, how many pages should be a research paper?
Okay. I got your point. How many pages? How many pages? Okay. So generally, a research article ranges between 3,500 to 4,000 words. 3,500 to 4,000 words, where we consider 275 words as a page. I mean, a page has 275 words on an average, and the paper is between 3,500 to 4,000 words. But again, this is a general view that I'm giving you. This again varies from journal to journal. Some journals allow higher word counts, I mean above 4,000. And this always excludes the references, the tables, and the figure legends. But again, there are certain journals which include the words mentioned in the references, the tables, and the figure legends in the total word count allowed. But generally, it varies between 3,500 to 4,000 words. Am I clear, Laila?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laila. So the next question is from YP30. Can you please give your original name, please? There's no response.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
How can I?
Ma'am, can you please say your full name? Mention your full name.
Isra Muhammad.
You can write in the chat box itself, okay?
Morning.
So you can just read out the question.
Yeah. So the question is, how can I avoid plagiarism?
Okay. So the best way to avoid plagiarism is that you just read an article, think within your mind, and write whatever you are thinking, not just copy pasting it. So instead of copying some text from a research article and pasting it as such, or pasting it after paraphrasing, you should write the content of that paper or the idea that you are drawing from that article in your own words. So this is the best way to avoid plagiarism. And if at all you are, if you are taking an idea from a research article and you are giving your own words to that idea, then also you should cite that source from where you have taken that idea. So this way you can avoid plagiarism.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions? So I guess there are no more questions to be asked. So
Okay.
we can wrap it up. Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining, and we hope to see you soon, another webinar again soon. Thank you.